Hey guys, and happy Mardi Gras to all of you. That's right, it is Fat Tuesday. They are celebrating parades in my hometown of New Orleans. So, once again, happy Mardi Gras to everyone. Welcome to episode 161 of Meeple to Meeple. It is worker bees and worker placement. So, today we're exploring a truly sweet new title that's going to be coming to Kickstarter soon, and that's Apis Mellifera. It's inspired by the amazing world of bees. This game combines the beauty of nature with the strategy of worker placement. You're going to take on the role of a hive leader, managing your colony of industrious worker bees, gathering nectar, crafting honey, all while navigating the challenges that could either make or break your hive. Bees make the perfect workers for your worker placement game. Today, I've got Henry from Apis Gaming Corp. Henry, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, PJ?
This is fantastic. Thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. Recently, we talked about, I want to say it was last week, it might have been the week before. I talked about how this podcast marries really well with playtesting of prototypes. And this is a perfect example. You sent me a prototype of Apis Mellifera. We played it a couple of times, and I got to experience it. We shipped it off to the next person. And now here we are. We're going to talk about your game.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of the content creation really ties well in with prototypes. I think that's actually how I met you. Was we were play testing another prototype for my cousin. I see his game right behind you, his expansion for Time Lancers.
That's right. That's right. That was at Gen Con last year.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that
great.
was fun. We didn't get a chance to play your game, but I'm glad you were willing to stick it out with me and send me a copy. And we did. My wife and I play a lot of games together, just the two of us. So we did play it at 2. We had our local game group over, so we played it at 4 as well. So we got kind of experience the game, and it's pretty incredible. But I want to start. Tell me about you and how did you get into the modern gaming hobby yourself?
So myself started playing games when I was actually really young. So my dad was a big war game person, a strategy game person. So like I was playing very complicated war games that were like made in the 70s and 80s when I was like a teenager with my dad. So you had a weird balance of like, oh, I would play Monopoly one night with the family, and then another night I'm playing, the Third Reich, which is a giant World War II strategy game that takes like 4 hours to play. I really started expanding beyond those kind of games in college where we learned the games that are more popular, like Catan, Ticket to Ride, and then we jumped to Twilight Imperium as a group. And so after
That's
Twilight
quite a
Imperium,
jump.
it really was. We talk about it all the time. Where in college we would play it for 6 hours one night, like just stay up all night doing it, and then after that we've kind of played a lot more games since then. So.
I ask this just about everyone. Do you have a favorite game of all time that you enjoy playing? Or if not, do you have a game that you enjoy playing like right now?
Yes, all time would be Twilight Imperium,
Okay.
and maybe it's because I haven't been able to play it enough to be sick of it yet. But that's just because it's hard to get, 4 people to commit 6 hours of their day, you know what I mean? But
Yes.
Twilight Imperium is my favorite game of all time. I would say right now, my favorite game to play aside from Apis Mellifera, my game, would be, Viticulture or Terraforming Mars. Like, those are the 2 I've been playing a lot lately.
So I know that Apis really is at its core a worker placement game. I mean, it has other elements, and we'll definitely get into that. Is worker placement a favorite of yours, favorite mechanic, or like what gravitated you towards that mechanic and that theme?
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorites and one of my business partner Drew's favorites. And what gravitated toward that theme was I was telling Drew that my cousin Kenny makes board games, and I was telling him about Time Lancers. And he's like, "Well, I have an idea for a game." And it was bee themed. And I was like, "Well, you make an outline and I like it. We'll go into business, we'll make it together." And he did. And I was like, "This got a lot of potential. Like, this is very enjoyable." And so we've been working on it ever since. And it just happens that worker placement goes very well with bees, and it is both of our favorite type of game.
So, and I guess I should say hello, Drew. Sorry you weren't able to make it on the show. Drew, does he keep bees like outside of his designing of a game? Is that something that he does?
Yeah. So it started off as a hobby for him, where he would actually keep bees, and he actually made mead, like a wine that's based out of honey. So he did it as a hobby, and then eventually found a position a job position that lets him do it for a living. So he's like a regional manager of different beekeepers. And so all the science in the game is based on his knowledge of beekeeping.
Wow. Wow, that's I didn't realize, like, you could make a living keeping bees. That's
Yeah.
kinda
So
cool.
a lot of businesses are really getting into this, that green movement. And so they'll bring in, people to bring in beehives, and then they'll need people to manage those beehives when they're on their property. So you get some like tax benefits for it, and it's also a good public image thing. And bees are just an important part of our ecosystem in general. And so Drew manages a lot of the part-time beekeepers that keep those hives together. So he'll work with other businesses. They're like, "Hey, we'd like some hives here." They'll coordinate to get them the equipment, find somebody to manage that hive locally. So he manages like a whole southeast region, I think.
That's cool. We have a colleague, in our professional world outside of gaming who also keeps bees as a hobby. I was thinking a lot about that and asking him a lot of questions when I was looking at the prototype of Apis, and I was like, "Hey, man, is this like," and I was telling him about it, he's like, "That sounds amazing." I'm like, "Right? Who knew?" Right? Who knew?
Yeah. I mean, when we were at Gen Con, one of our playtesters specifically, we did the playtest room, and somebody specifically signed up for it because they were a beekeeper and they loved it. And that's kind of our exposures. Like people that keep bees, they really love this because we really try to build the mechanics in the game around the science of beekeeping. And that was kind of where we came together, where Drew would have the idea of like, hey, this is how it works in real life. And I'm like, okay, well, we have to match that with how we can mechanically make it an enjoyable game. And so that was kind of the creative path that we took.
So Drew presents you his idea, right? And did you know what the theme was before he meant
Yeah, he just said it was gonna be
okay,
bees, a bee-themed
okay,
worker placement was all he said.
okay. So the only thing you knew was, "Hey, I've got this game that I'm designed and it's a bee themed worker placement." That's all you know, right? So there's your slate. So then you get it and it's about keeping bees. And I assume you don't know anything about this. What was your initial reaction when you saw this?
Yeah, no, I didn't know anything about bees, I'll be honest, except for I knew that he had bees and that he made mead out of bees, which I have drank his mead, which is great, right? But when I saw it, I was just like, as he was explaining it to me, I was like, "Oh, okay, what is this though?" And he kept explaining the science of it. I'm like, "Okay, I see how this is all connecting." And it really started to formulate in my head of how to really change the game to make it such a compelling play that people would want to play it again and again. So like I went into it cold, not knowing, and I mean, at this point, I know I probably could keep a lot of bees because I know a lot about
Right.
it too. So yeah,
So that's interesting because I was wondering this myself. You think that if you've played this game enough, the knowledge would transfer to the real world?
yes, however, I don't think you could just play this game and then be able to raise a hive. The reason I know it is because I had to ask those in-depth questions to make sure I understood it, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't wanna create a product that I didn't fully understand the science behind it. So, in the process of creating this game, I think I could keep beehives quite successfully. But, yeah, if you just play it, I don't know if you'd be qualified to do it, but I will say there are a lot of easy ways to get involved in beekeeping, a lot of associations in every state and local areas that you can go to. I live here in Asheville, North Carolina, and they have a beekeeping club that meets and talks about different problems and helps you start your hives if you want.
Did you reach out to that organization in the process of making the game to educate yourself, and did you share the prototype with them to get their feedback?
We've reached out to a few beekeeping associations, but we didn't give them a prototype yet, but we plan
Uh,
on to. So
okay,
we've talked to a couple. I live in North Carolina, and so I talked to the North Carolina Association. There's a local one that I plan on going to and kind of introducing it, but they kind of been on pause for the winter, so that's kind of part of it.
sure. Yeah.
But he does a lot of the beekeeping networking. So in Georgia and all of his business ties, like he kind of talks about like, and he gets their feedback too. Like, hey, what do you think of this? Does this make sense to you as a non-board gamer but a beekeeper and things like that?
Right. I think that what I've observed recently is some of the really the hot games that people don't realize, or the kind of they're not really sleepers, but are games that appeal to the non-gamers as well as the gamers, right? And I think Apis achieves that based on my experience, right? And for those of you watching, please note that I did play a prototype, so we have no idea what the final product's going to look like. Once you got it all cleaned up, I can only imagine it's just going to be the sky's the limit from there. So tell me about the process. You get started. Drew's giving you his idea, the plan. Where did it all begin?
It's important to know we've always lived in two different states since we started this project. So when it first started, I lived in Florida, he lived in Georgia. He still lives in Georgia. So it started on Zoom back in 2021, and it was on PowerPoint. So basically, we didn't have a knowledge of how to make tabletop simulator or anything yet. So we basically just had PowerPoint slides, and one of us, like usually me, would move around little bees onto the spot, little pictures of them, and then we would just keep track of the tally of the resources and things like that. What then developed into is we did a business trip and we actually made a little prototype with like a poster board and little sticky notes, your standard how
Yeah.
you actually start a board game thing. And that was kind of how it all started.
So, in the process, you're going to be launching on Kickstarter, right? Is that correct? Yeah. When at some point you're ready to pull that trigger, and I know it's coming up. It hasn't launched yet, but um, what made you decide to go with a crowdfunding platform as opposed to reaching out to a publisher? Maybe you did reach out to publishers and have them publish it and sell the rights off rather than self-publishing. Because that's a really interesting conversation, and I've gotten a lot of different answers from designers.
Well, so admittedly, we started from the very beginning thinking Kickstarter. I think mainly because that was what we were used to. I had backed games on Kickstarter before. My cousin had done his games on Kickstarter, so that was what I was familiar with. A couple years ago, the idea of pitching it to a publisher came up at a convention in Georgia. It was a convention specifically for game designers to pitch their games to publishers. We'd never really thought about it, so we were like, "Yeah, we'll try it and see what it's like." And I think we realized that we want too much artistic control over the game that we don't want it to change. And so even though we had some good conversations with publishers, we never found anything that we really wanted to work with because we didn't want to lose that control. We wanted to really stay to the theme of beekeeping. And I know there are other games out there that once you get pitched to a publisher, they're going to change stuff the way they want it. And we didn't want to lose that. It's our passion project.
Yeah. So tell everyone about let's talk about the game itself, right? So once someone backs a game, it hits the table, it's finished, fulfilled, it's launched, everything's great, everything's happened, and it reaches their table. What can they expect when they open the box?
So when they open the box, they should first expect to be hit with what they saw on the pictures of a very pretty game that is very gentle and easy to kind of pick up. So even though I would say a worker placement, it's naturally going to be a little bit heavier of a game. What we found is it's a lot easier to learn. When we sent it to a few people to do play tests and previews, they're like, yeah, they picked it up in like 20 minutes. It suffers from at the very beginning the thing all worker placement stuff suffer from, which is that too many options to do, right? Analysis paralysis. But once you start, it immediately starts flowing, and then it just is easy after that. So I think people would open it, they're gonna look at it and be like, "Oh, this is beautiful." They set it all up. Maybe they're like, "Oh man, there's a lot going on." But once they've learned how to do it in like 10, 15 minutes, they'll be smooth sailing right after that. And so that's kind of what we wanted was a vibe that was very nature specific, think Wingspan, think so, those kind of games, but a worker placement that also wasn't too hard for your non-gamers to play, like one that would be have the meat to it, but also be easy to learn.
So it's really similar. Now, this is all contingent upon not too many changes based off the prototype that I saw. So I can only speak from that. But you're going to have the main board in front of you. For seasoned gamers, there won't be any surprises, places where you will place your workers, get resources, things like that. But talk about the player boards. They're probably my favorite part of the game. Describe those two.
Yeah, so yeah, like you said, there's going to be a shared game board, which is like the world. You send your bees out to the world. Well, your player board is your hive. And there's two parts to the hive. You have the actual hive structure, which is kind of shaped and designed like an actual beehive. And then on the other side would be different actions that bees would do within their hive. And so you have this really fun thing where you have waxed out frames because bees will basically take wooden frames that beekeepers give them, wax them out, and then hold stuff in them. And then beekeepers can also expand their hives, stack them up higher. That's why you see some hives that are short, some that are really tall, things like that. And so then on the other side would be the actions the bees would be doing in the hive, things like turning the resources they got into honey, is the most common one. Laying eggs to make more bees, those kind of things. And so every player board has their own unique actions that no one else can take. But then the shared game board, the world, is your traditional worker placement where if someone takes a spot, nobody else can take that, with a few exceptions, of course.
I think what's really cool about the player board in front of you is you were talked about it a little bit, the wooden frame, and they will, would you say out, wax it
Wax it
out?
out. Yeah, that's
Wax it
kind of
out.
what we call it. Yeah, so as an action, you can wax out your frame, and you take basically beeswax. The bees will make beeswax, and then they wax out the wood that's in there. Now those wax frames can hold resources the way that hives normally would hold resources.
So you can expand your hive, and that's going to give you access to more resources, right?
Yep, it can hold more resources, allow you to do more things, and of course, the larger your hive goes, the more resources you need to keep your bees alive. So because they need to eat. So yeah.
What about, if I recall, you only start with a small number of bees, and there are ways to gain more, to do more actions in future rounds.
Yeah, so a lot of worker placements will slowly grow your amount of workers. Think Feast for Odin, where you'll get one extra worker every round. In this game, you make your workers by either laying eggs, which will hatch into new beeples, or you can buy some from the beekeeper. And that's a pretty common actual bee practice is, a lot of people hear about buying queens. So if you're a new beekeeper, you might acquire a queen from another seller, but you'll need some bees to also go with that queen. And so you can buy bees for a little bit cheaper of a price in the real world. And in the game, you buy bees and add it to your hive.
And so this, like you said, this is something that really happens. Beekeepers do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you're a new beekeeper, like you can't just put out a hive and hope a bee occupies it. I mean, there's a small chance that might happen. But in general, if you're a new beekeeper, you'll purchase a queen, and usually it comes with some bees of some sort. And then you purchase all the equipment, and you kind of introduce the queen to the hive, and it slowly grows from there. But most beekeepers will start by buying what they need.
Right. So, for those of you who, like me, have no idea how beekeeping works, but you've seen it, there's the big box, right? There's like a wooden box, and then you will see the beekeepers. They pull out the slats of wood, right? And that's essentially what the player board is, right? Is that slat of wood? Is there a name for that? I can't remember.
That's a frame.
A frame.
So yeah, that's a wooden frame, and most wooden frames will have like this little substance in it that kind of starts the hexagon shapes for the bees, makes it a little bit easier for them, and then the bees just kind of pile into the wax on that.
Yeah, and that's what you're building up on your player board. You're
Yes,
through
yeah. So
through
you
the waxing out, I believe. Yeah.
Yep, you build in it. You take the wooden frames, you wax them out, and you're building up that hive size, and then there's some empty space in there that you can also expand by in the game paying the beekeeper honey. That's kind of the transaction that you have, and the beekeeper will slide some more wood in so that you can wax more out and hold more stuff.
What is it to your mind that makes your game, Apis Mellifera, stand out from other worker placement games? Obviously, seasoned gamers are going to be like, "Do I really need another worker placement?" Obviously, the short answer is yes. What makes your game stand out from other worker placements?
First, I think the vibe of it. A lot of worker placements, they have their own unique vibe that they bring to the table, and I haven't seen a worker placement that brings that natural feeling, that nature feeling, almost like an educational vibe in a way. That's just not as common in worker placements. So I think that's the first part. I think the second part is it's going to be a worker placement that you can also play with friends that might not have played worker placements before. And I think that's huge, right? Like we all have gaming groups that we play and certain people like certain games. And maybe you have a group of friends that likes to play those real casual games and you really want to get them into the better, harder core games. You want to sit there for 4 hours and really grind at terraforming Mars or something. Well, I think this game is a great, the term I've always used is gateway games. So those games that are that level to really introduce them to a new level of game, and then before they know it, now they're suddenly there sitting playing Feast for Odin for 2.5 hours with you. You know,
Right. So, is it safe to say that it is your intention, your hope that your game would be the perfect gateway worker placement game?
yeah, absolutely. I think that is a great thing to say. A gateway worker placement game that is still challenging enough for experienced players that you're going to enjoy.
Let's take that a step further, right? New gamers, they play Apis, they love it. and they're ready to move to the next thing. Is there a second game that already exists that's already in your mind that you're like, man, people love this and they're gonna love?
That's a great question. I think viticulture the theming of viticulture will appeal to people that are newer to worker placement. So if you've played Apis, then moving to viticulture, because it's making wine, and that's always fun too. I think you could also go into the more classics of Agricola or Feast for Odin or Architects of the West Kingdom is another worker placement I love. I think those are all relatively easy. That would be the next step. But if I had to pick one, it'd be viticulture, I think, would be the next step.
So go from making honey to making wine.
Exactly.
I see what you're doing there. So will there be either in the Kickstarter as a stretch goal or as an add-on or a future project, will there be an expansion where you can make mead from the honey? Because I don't remember that being a component of the game.
That's a great question. And if that was to happen, that would be an expansion of some sort. Because right
Okay.
now, you play as a hive. So that would be more focused if you're playing as the beekeeper, what you do with the honey afterwards. So yeah, we're not working on that now, but we want to see where we go with this project before we commit to other things. So we have a lot of ideas, including something like that.
Was there, and since Drew's not here, if you know this answer, I'll ask this of Drew as well. But for the both of you, was there a game or a series of games that you drew your inspiration from when designing this one?
For sure. I can say for the vibe that we wanted players to feel just by looking at it, something like Wingspan. Um, we love nature games, we love nature, and I would say Wingspan is a really good gateway game too. One that is easy to teach new people. It's visually appealing, so a lot of non-traditional board gamers will want to play it. But also, the people that are hardcore gamers still enjoy playing Wingspan. I haven't met somebody that doesn't enjoy Wingspan yet. They might be out there, but I haven't met them.
Right.
And so the vibe of Wingspan, and then we wanted the mental challenge of any worker placement that we enjoy. The games that we like with Feast for Odin inspired us, especially with the how you fill in your frame versus how you fill in your player board in Feast for Odin, various things like that. I think those are the kind of things inspired us.
Yeah. So we established that Drew is a professional beekeeper. What about his experience in gaming?
So Drew is an experienced gamer. He's showed me a few games, some of those worker placements early on, many years ago. So Drew and I, we met actually in Afghanistan. We're both in the army,
Okay.
and we met, and showed up, and we talked about things we were interested in, and video games, board games, or that. And then we moved to Georgia after we finished our tour, and we played a lot of games there. So the early games that we played all the different versions of Risk. I showed him games like Twilight Imperium, Catan. We played a lot of, and we really got into worker placements at that time.
So did he? I'm assuming you guys talked about it. Was there a specific game that inspired him, or was this game inspired by his life outside of gaming?
Yeah, so I think his life outside of gaming really what inspired him was beekeeping. Don't get me wrong, playing the games and loving games inspired
Right.
him to want to make one. But
Right.
the idea of making a bee themed game, I think, was really inspired by his passion for nature and for bees.
I think that you both managed to do something. I preach this all the time. It's all about the sacrament of marriage between theme and mechanics. And when it's done well, it is done really well. And I think you guys have managed to execute that brilliantly.
Thank you.
You really get the impression that, I mean, yes, it's a worker placement for seasoned gamers. We know how worker placements go. Yes, of course. But it's like the theme really, especially the science behind it, really informs how the mechanics work in the game so that you can do the things that would be done. And it's all adhering to the real world applications of that theme. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, so first, I think, and Drew would agree with me on this, that themes are what make a game. I know you have to have the base. You have to have a game that actually works well. Right? You can have a cool theme, and if the game doesn't work, well, it's not fun. But in order to make a game functional to enjoyable, you need a good theme. And I played a lot of games that some are very popular with gamers, and I'm like, the theme doesn't appeal to me. And so yeah, and when it came to making this, there were some times where Drew kind of brought that thematic, the science, the expertise to it, and I kind of brought because while Drew plays games, I played a lot of games. And so I kind of brought that practical, player based thought of mechanics into it. And there were times we had to butt heads on things and compromise to make sure that the game was still enjoyable, but tried to be as, true to the theme as we possibly could.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it was executed brilliantly. I talk about this all the time. My absolute favorite game of all time, which I haven't mentioned in probably 2 episodes, so let's talk about it, is Obsession, which marries the theme and the mechanics so well. And if you strip them away, then they're just kind of blah, but put them together and it's just gold. I really enjoyed the experience of playing Apis. It was really incredible. And I thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you for playing it. We're very appreciative. Honestly, that's probably the most fun thing is when some people play our game and they tell us that they enjoyed it. Like, because it's a passion project of ours, and so every time someone says that we enjoyed it as well, it's like that's awesome. That's what we want. Is we made this thing that we think is really fun, enjoyable, we really love, and if other people love it too, that it's very rewarding.
So I want to ask you about the actual process, the behind the scenes of making a board game. What was your favorite aspect of the entire project working on this?
Well, I will say one small thing. We love the different beeples that we've used in the past. So the little pieces. The very first ones we used were these little tiny circle bees. I'll see if I got some photos of them to send it to you. But like these little tiny like scrapbooking bees that we bought. So we loved them, and even the early playtesters that were doing the real rough version, friends and family, were like, "Oh, these are so adorable," and so that kind of stuck with us of like we need to make sure we like the bee pieces. And there's some other bee games out there that they're enjoyable and we love bees, right? So we love playing games with bees, but their pieces aren't, they didn't feel right in our mind. And so we're trying to make Beeple. And so honestly, that's part of it. The Beeples in the prototype were made by this really nice couple who have a wood making business out in California. So we bought those custom for that. I'll have to make sure that we keep in the main game that design into the actual manufacturing of it. So I would say making the Beeples was probably my favorite part of it. Just every time we used them, it's great.
Well, now comes the follow-up question of what was the absolute worst part of this experience that you never want to repeat this again? Like it was just terrible and you hated it.
Were we talking just making the game or everything that involves a Kickstarter of the game?
The whole thing from the moment Drew approaches you until, well, today, since Kickstarter hasn't happened yet, but
Yeah.
was there
Uh,
one thing that just it really pained you?
Social media and meta ads. Like, oh my gosh. Okay, so neither one of us are very big social media people, but you kind
Okay.
of have to be in order to market a game. And then so unfortunately in the division of work that kind of fell on me because Drew didn't even have certain social medias and I did, and I don't know. That is a unfun experience. I do appreciate and I love watching content creators, but I don't know. I'm not really I don't wanna be out there in media very often, admittedly, to then turn that into like, okay, now I have to not only, post occasionally on social media, now I have to figure out how to make ads that will show other people the game so they'll be interested in it. It's just not an enjoyable experience, and in particular, Meta's advertising tool is not user friendly to people that have never done it before.
Okay. Well,
There you
there
go.
you have it. I love that. Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that. So if you had a friend or a colleague, anyone is approaching you, they've got an idea for a game, just much like Drew did, and they're thinking about designing a game. What advice do you have for a first time game design?
The best advice, and we've received this from other game designers, is really figure out what is your goal for this game. If your goal is just to make a game that you and your friends and family can enjoy, you know, um, that's kind of very different than if, hey, I want to make a game and release it and get a lot of people out there. Um, and knowing what your goal is will also help you understand really the full task that you're taking on. Because if you're just making a game for you and your friends and family, you only need one copy of it, your own copy, get print and play or one of those small board game makers just to make an individual copy. And that's it. I mean, you made it an art passion project and you can enjoy it with your friends and family. But if you're really like, hey, I have this idea for this game, I want to share it with the world, want to get it out there. Well, then know that there's a lot of things that go on with it, like marketing and meta ads and a Kickstarter process and getting manufacturers and fulfillment and all those different things behind the scenes that admittedly we weren't as prepared for when we started this project.
Yeah. So, talk to me about the community of board game designers, right? I mean, obviously, your cousin designed a game and they're working on their expansion. And I know they got some other projects going on, but how well were you received, your idea received when you were reaching out to other designers just to be like, help?
Yeah, so game designers are really, at least our experience, are really supportive of each other. First of all, one of the conventions I mentioned is called Proto ATL. Basically, the whole thing is just a whole bunch of game designers where you play test each other's games and you get honest feedback from that. And that's great because a lot of times your friends and family, they love you. So they're not going to tell you all the mean things. Maybe they'll be like, well, I didn't enjoy it this much, whatever. Another game maker will sit there and be like, yeah, this really was not good. I did not enjoy this. And at that time, it's like a punch to the gut, but it's very appreciative because it comes out of a place of like, hey, they want to help you succeed. And so they see this, what they view as a flaw, and they want to address it with you. And additionally, and I'll throw out a few shout outs. There's, my cousin has been extremely helpful, but he's family, right? So you might think, well, he has to be.
Right.
But there's another game designer. He made a game called Ultra Massive. It's a black hole themed board game. He did his Kickstarter last year. Name's Alex. Super great, helpful. He would log on to calls with us, be like, "Yeah, this is what I did. This is how we did it. These are the challenges that we had." He gave us feedback on things like the graphic design of stuff because that's kind of what he does by his day job. Another shout out to James from Pocket Parks, a game that just recently got funded on Kickstarter. James took the time to do Discord calls with us and kind of walk us through some of the challenges that we had. So like overall, the game design community is very supportive of each other, and I think that is great. And we try to pay that back too whenever people have questions from us.
That's fantastic. I'm really pleased to hear that because yeah, I feel like sometimes as content creators we get lost in there's multiple sub communities. There's the content creator community, then there's the gamers, right? And then there's the designers and there's the publishers, and I'm really trying to incorporate all of them on this show, which is why you're on that. And I got a prototype of your game and play it, which I love play testing. So I want to talk about really quickly, how easy was it for you and or Drew, for that matter, to open yourselves up and allow yourselves to be vulnerable to constructive criticism? Like, how difficult was that for you?
So it can be, a little bit of a anxiety inducing to start, I will say. But once you do it the first time, then it gets a lot easier. And you take that feedback and you improve your game. And pretty soon people don't have a lot of negative feedback. Their small things might be like, oh, well, the production of this. And then in your mind, you're like, okay, well, it's a prototype. You know what I mean? This isn't the final product, right? I only got so much money to spend to make a new version every five weeks, right? But I think, yeah, it could be like you could build it up in your head, but the moment you do it, I think it makes it a lot easier. Like you get it out of the way that first game with a bunch of strangers, they give you bad feedback. You go to the hotel bar, grab a drink real quick, come back out, and then you're back out there playing more games and you feel good.
So it sounds like, and this is not surprising, it sounds like it's up to the individual how well they receive the feedback, whether good or bad.
Yes, absolutely. And I always want to emphasize, and we always say this anytime we play test anybody's game, is like, hey, like this is going to be set out of constructive criticism for your benefit. So it's not that we have anything against it, and we're here to try to help you make your game better. And so when
Exactly.
you approach that mindset of like, hey, they're only trying to help you, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So when's the game coming to Kickstarter?
So we're hoping to launch in the spring. We're keeping that, a little bit flexible, whether it be the end of March or early April, based on where we are with our numbers. And part of that marketing is you have certain numbers that you want to try to beat before you launch to
Right.
ensure that you'll get backed on time. So in the spring, though, is right. Springtime
And
for
do you
bees.
do you have a page that folks can follow on Kickstarter now, or have you
We do have a Kickstarter pre-launch page, and
pre-launch?
we have a pre-launch page, and then we have an email sign up that people can sign up if they want to do our email list. They can also do one of the $1 reservations that they'll get a custom bead themed die that'll go with their game when they back it on Kickstarter.
Okay. So here comes your favorite part,
Okay.
because you've already said it's not your favorite. So tell everyone where they can find you on all the social platforms and where they can find and back Apis Mellifera when it launches.
Absolutely. So we have on Instagram, we are Apis Gaming LLC. On our Kickstarter, if you just simply search for Apis Mellifera the B game or just Apis Mellifera, it's probably going to pop up. But Apis Mellifera, the B game, you'll find our pre-launch page. And then on our website is apislaunch.apisboardgaming.com. And I'll make sure I send you the links too, because
Yeah.
they're a little bit longer, and that way people can just look at them instead of trying to listen to what I'm saying.
Yeah, we will definitely have all that in the links below. Well, Henry, thank you so much. This was really cool. Thanks for letting me be a part of the playtesting experience. This game is really interesting, guys. Take a look at it. Go to the pre-launch page, see what you think. There's some great pictures on Instagram. I've got it up on my phone right now, taking a look at it. Give them a like and a follow as well if you can. And please send us comments. Be sure to like and subscribe the channel. And here's the question for you. What is your favorite worker placement game? Send that to us in the comments after you listen to this. Once again, be kind to one another and let's play more games.
Absolutely. Thanks, PJ.